For over 1,000 years, one city stood as the last living fragment of the Roman Empire. Constantinople, built on 7 hills, wrapped in walls that had never been breached by force, guarding the strait between Europe and Asia. By 1453, it was a shadow of its former self. Its population had collapsed. Its treasury was empty. Its empire had shrunk to little more than the city itself, and a handful of scattered territories. But it was still Constantinople. And that name alone made it a prize no conqueror could resist. In 1451, 19-year-old Sultan took the Ottoman throne. His name was Mehmed II. He had already failed once, placed on the throne briefly as a teenager, then pushed aside by his own advisors, who doubted he had the strength to rule. Mehmed returned, with something to prove. And he fixed his ambition on the one target every Muslim ruler before him had failed to take, the city of Constantine. He did not hide his intentions. Within months of taking power, Mehmed ordered the construction of a fortress on the European shore of the Bosphorus, Rumeli-Hisari, directly across from an older Ottoman fortress on the Asian side. Together, the two strongholds could close the strait completely. Constantinople's lifeline to the outside world was being severed, before a single shot had been fired. Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos watched this happen, with almost nothing to counter it. He sent envoys begging for help from the Christian kingdoms of Europe. Most ignored him. Centuries of religious schism between the Orthodox East and Catholic West had poisoned any sense of shared cause. A handful of foreign soldiers arrived anyway, several hundred, led by an Italian condottiero named Giovanni Giustiniani, who would become the most important man on the walls. Who wasn't born a Roman? Then came the cannon. A Hungarian engineer named Orban had offered his services to Constantine first. The emperor couldn't afford him. Orban went to Mehmed instead, who paid without hesitation. What Orban built for the Sultan was unlike anything siege warfare had seen, a bronze cannon nearly 27 feet long, capable of firing stone balls weighing half a ton. It took 60 oxen and hundreds of men just to move it into position. Constantinople's walls, the Theodosian walls, unbroken for over 1,000 years, were about to meet a weapon built specifically to break them. On April 6, 1453, the siege began. Mehmed's army numbered somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 men. Behind the walls, Constantine had perhaps 7,000 defenders, a mix of Byzantine soldiers, Genoese and Venetian volunteers, and armed civilians. The odds were not close. For weeks, the great cannon pounded the walls. Sections crumbled. Defenders worked through the night, dragging rubble and timber to patch the breaches before dawn. Every morning, the Ottomans found the wall standing again. It was slow, brutal, grinding work, but the ancient defenses were holding. So Mehmed changed the game. The Golden Horn, the inlet protecting the city's northern flank, was blocked by a massive iron chain, stretched across its mouth, impossible for enemy ships to pass. It had protected Constantinople for generations. Mehmed decided, if his ships couldn't sail through it, they would go around it. In a single night, Ottoman engineers greased a road of logs over the hills behind Galata, on neutral ground north of the city. Under cover of darkness, dozens of Ottoman warships were hauled overland, out of the Bosphorus, over the ridge, and down into the Golden Horn itself. When the sun rose, the defenders of Constantinople looked out to find an enemy fleet floating inside the one harbor they had believed was unreachable. It was one of the most audacious maneuvers in military history. And it broke something in the city's morale. The defenders were no longer just holding a wall. They were surrounded. Through May, the siege ground on. Mehmed's council was split. Some advisors urged him to retreat before European reinforcements could arrive. He refused. He had spent the treasury, and staked his reign, on this city. There would be no retreat. In the final week of May, Mehmed made his decision. The assault would come on the night of May 28th into the 29th. And he would send everything he had. The attack came in 3 brutal waves. First, the irregular troops, poorly trained, thrown forward simply to exhaust the defenders and draw out their strength. They were repelled, but at a cost. Then came Mehmed's Anatolian regiments, disciplined and well-armed, hitting the walls with everything they had. The defenders held again, barely. Then came the Janissaries, the Ottoman Empire's elite infantry, the Sultan's personal guard, thrown into the breach in relentless, disciplined waves. And in the chaos of this final assault, two things happened almost simultaneously that sealed the city's fate. Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese commander who had organized the defense at the most critical breach, was struck down, grievously wounded. As he was carried from the wall for treatment, panic spread through the defenders around him. The line, which had held through weeks of bombardment, began to waver. At nearly the same moment, Ottoman soldiers discovered a small, poorly guarded postern gate, the Kerkeporte, left unlocked in the outer wall. A group of Janissaries slipped through it. Ottoman flags appeared on the inner walls. To the exhausted defenders, it looked as though the city had already fallen behind them. The line broke. Constantine XI, the last Roman emperor, is recorded by multiple chroniclers as having removed his imperial regalia and thrown himself into the fighting alongside his soldiers as the walls gave way. His body was never officially identified. He simply vanished into the chaos of the city's final hours, the last emperor of Rome, dying anonymously among his own men, nearly 11 centuries after the fall of Rome itself in the west. By the afternoon of May 29, 1453, Ottoman forces controlled the city. Mehmed II rode through the streets to the Hagia Sophia, the greatest cathedral in the Christian world for nearly 1,000 years, and ordered it converted into a mosque. He took a new title for himself, Caesar Rum, Caesar of Rome. The empire that had outlasted the fall of Rome by 1,000 years was over in a single day. The fall sent shockwaves through Europe. It marked, for many historians, the symbolic end of the Middle Ages, the moment the old Christian order of the East collapsed, and a new Islamic power rose to dominate the Eastern Mediterranean. Greek scholars fled west, carrying classical texts that would help fuel the Renaissance already stirring in Italy. European kingdoms, cut off from old trade routes to Asia, began looking for new paths by sea, a search that would eventually lead Columbus across the Atlantic. Mehmed II, the Sultan who refused to be told a 1,000-year-old city was unconquerable, earned a new name of his own that day. History remembers him as Mehmed the Conqueror.